Radio Cayman,
the voice,
the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Another fantastic Friday. Maybe you're sitting enjoying that chicken tikka masala from Southern Spice and you go, ooh, boy, I don't know what's better, the taste or, well, you know what I go. Well, we want you to be as excited about our guests as we welcome to the studio, Ms. Jennifer Weber. We're going to be talking about, freedom from smoking. That's going to be our first discussion. Want to know more? Well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And certainly want you to always listen and be attentive, be informed, engage. Who knows? Entertain even. Even if you laugh at my expense, that's okay. Laughter is good medicine. Well, I have the excellent company of the operations manager on call, Joe, over the Health City Cayman, Mr. Jennifer Weber. Thank you for joining us. There are many times in life when you have to pick yourself up and you press on because, well, that's expectation. But then you know if it's going to get done, someone has to do it, and if not you, who, if not now, when. You're constantly going, and that's good. It inspires, it motivates, it encourages, and hopefully we take a page and we do likewise. So good to welcome you again to the studio.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm no stranger to the studio. It feels really good to be back. Almost feels like coming home.
You know what? We like when people feel welcome. What's that song, Miss Susan? I'm no stranger to the rain. Well, I find that there are two things. I didn't say. You notice that how she just pulled down the audio, and I think our lawyers had a disclaimer. We're not responsible for your eardrums if he sings. Maybe they should. That's probably the next thing on my contract. But through music and through food, I think we find a way not only to fellowship but to communicate. Poetry and its prose allows people to be, sometimes positive and pensive. Not my alliterations at all, but nonetheless. But I think sometimes we're not, sobering enough to appreciate that what we do impacts us and others.
It's true.
Today's discussion, as we talk about, smoking and how to give it up, it was a bit of a challenge for what a day is. One of my uncles passed from lung cancer, and
I'm sorry.
It what sparked me to do the course way back when, because you get emotive. Why can't you stop smoking? Why don't you? And of blessed memory, Mr. Dolan called, and again, you understand not just the addictiveness of it, they understand what it is. And the day my uncle, he went to the physician and he got the news, and there was a bit of a reluctance, I think, for that physician to give the news because that was just a regular physician or not an oncologist. And he looked at the doctor and he said, "Doc, just give it to me straight, man. I'm a big boy." And you could see the that level of reticence, that level of, well, how do I tell this man this? And he's looked at me, and I said, he asked, just tell him, right? Spoke to him. His uncle stood up, put his hand across the table and said, all right, well, thank you. I'll see you next time. We left, went to the car, and opened the door. He put his foot on the threshold. He lit a cigarette. And in his eyes, I can still see, I said, what happened? He said, well, something got taken. And it was that realization that there is life and there are things you can do. But you got to be willing to do it.
Yeah, that's really sad. It is. We are talking about giving up smoking here today. And I think there are lots of approaches to getting people to quit smoking. Yeah. But the reality is that none of us can convince anybody to stop smoking.
You can't.
It's not that people don't understand that it isn't healthy. When smoking first started, doctors were recommending cigarettes and saying, it keeps your weight down, it manages your stress. It wasn't until they started, the tests and the studies started coming out that it was very clear that it was bad for you, right? Yeah. And so in the beginning, it didn't seem like a bad thing, and then it became very clear. These days, there isn't anybody who is under the misconception that smoking is a positive thing or good for your health. But it is something that is a habit. It is something that people are addicted to. And a lot of people say, it's no big deal for me. I know I could stop anytime I want. That's okay. That's great. I'll stop when I want to stop. I just don't want to stop. Okay. But the reality is that nicotine is in cigarettes, and it is a highly addictive substance. And so our bodies all naturally produce chemicals in our brain that help us feel good and lift our mood, right? But when people smoke, that nicotine accelerates that and gives them that boost. And people like that feeling. Who doesn't want to feel good, right? And so once people start feeling that nicotine-induced boost of dopamine in their brain, it feels good and they want more of it. So it makes sense. It's just not an easy thing to give up. But if somebody wants to, we're here to talk about a way that we can help.
Yeah. And I appreciate you coming, because I recognize as parents, as spouses, as siblings, as the best of friends, even the individual, they want to quit or even cut back, as they say. You want them to, and you probably would do anything, especially when you recognize that there is a particular diagnosis. And if they were to stop even then, the probability of a better quality of life, even in those final days, could be significantly improved. At that point, it's probably a little bit late, but for a miracle. But it just shows you how challenging it is, even when they think they want to, but even finding the will to want to.
I was just talking to my husband and a couple of friends about this. None of us are smokers, but we were talking about how, everybody knows they need to get a colonoscopy, right? So we know we're going to get it. We have the insurance to do it. We plan to do it. And yet we never set the date to do it. And I think when you want to quit smoking, it's the same. You know you're going to do it. You plan to do it. You're just figuring out when you're going to do it. But without somebody pushing you to go ahead and make the decision, what will the date be? Yeah. Have you decided?
But you got to want to.
Yet let's make the date, and actually making you say, you know what, I've decided that I want to, and so therefore I'm going to start this Freedom from Smoking program with the understanding that there are 8 classes in a row over the span of 7 weeks. So you meet once a week, except for the critical week 4, because on week 4 you quit smoking. And then there's extra support 2 days later. So you have 2 meetings in 1 week for the week that you quit. And then after that, it's supportive maintenance. Yeah. So if you join this program called Freedom from Smoking, you are doing it because you feel like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and pick a date, and with this group of people, we're going to all try to quit smoking together. And this program is not, it's not something where you get kicked out if you don't, if you don't stay quit, which is an unusual turn of phrase. But people who go through this program do well because, one, it provides support, and two, it also encourages people to take the personal ownership of making the decision to do this and figure out what motivates them and figure out not only why they want to stop, but why they are smoking in the first place. You know, I'm now a certified facilitator for this program, so I did quite a bit of training. And it was very interesting for me to learn that people who smoke do it for a lot of reasons. It's social. You know, you meet your group of friends at work and you all go out for a cigarette break together, and it's a positive thing because you can socialize with people you wouldn't otherwise socialize with. You feel like you're a bonded unit of people. Yeah, because you're sort of counterculture, right? But together as a group, you get each other. And there are other things too, like sometimes people use going out for a cigarette to avoid things. So it's a strategy to avoid. You know, you get into a difficult situation with people, you don't know what to say, and you say, I'm going out for a cigarette. And so it's kind of a crutch too. I'd never thought about it that way. It's a way to escape uncomfortable circumstances and feelings.
And it's association as well. I mean, someone that I know is when they're doing a particular activity or something is transpiring and they're related to that, that level of association.
Yep, you get in your car, you don't even think about it, you're on autopilot, you get in the car, you push in that lighter, you turn on the radio, you start the car, and you start driving, and you are inhaling that first breath or of cigarette, or it's something as soon as you finish work, that you do, or whenever you eat, it's something afterwards, or for some people when you go out, if you are just a social smoker, you do it when you have a glass of wine, you feel like, oh, this is my time, this is my chance to relax, it relaxes me, and people establish a habit.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, we look at it, we make it challenging sometimes for people to do certain things, and that in itself, as you said, the counterculture can have that appeal. When we come back from the break, perhaps we can talk about a number of things. I knew I wrote it down somewhere. If you quit smoking and by day 2, day 3, you know, day 123, the benefits to your life are measurable and significant.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. Something that Dr. Lacroix has said many times publicly. He referenced other jurisdictions, Canada for instance, that perhaps in a car, anyone under a certain age, say 18, you just like you can't smoke in certain spaces, perhaps the legislation should be that we don't smoke in the car when there are these young ones, right? And as I think about that comment, I'm looking, yes, we're socially conscious, but unconsciously, we're in the car, we're smoking, we're sitting, you know, in the backyard. It's fairly open, but we're smoking. We don't want people to feel beat up, but we want to feel that there's support and hope if they want to try, and maybe it's their nth time before they get it. So, Ms. Jen, when we come back, we can tell them how to be a part of it, what's involved, maybe potentially some of the benefits, and anybody, you know, just give us a shout and share. It's not our intent. I can believe Ms. Jen would love me to say this on her behalf. Not our intent to offend, insult, embarrass anybody.
This is, no shame, no blame. This is an opportunity to take a step forward for yourself, and we're here to support you. All
right, well, 949-8037, 949-6990, after hours, 949. Call us now, 1-800-534-8255 if you have a question or comment or query. We want you to be a part of this, you know, freedom from smoking. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
When you're craving something big, something tasty that gives you that lip-smacking satisfaction, something that hits the spot, there is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
It's pretty tasty.
Filling and full of flavor. Try our new sweet onion steak teriyaki with a twist. Or the classic chicken teriyaki. Top it with green pepper, onions, cheese, and that sweet onion teriyaki sauce, all piled on your favorite artisanal bread. Satisfy that craving with a footlong from Subway.
Fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty.
Let's make it a meal with a drink, chips, and cookies. There is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
Upgrade your summer travel plans with non-stop flights from Grand Cayman to Panama. Panama airfares are now on sale from just $296 CI round trip. In just 2 hours aboard Cayman Airways, you can be in a land where the Caribbean meets the Pacific, where you'll find modern cities, rainforests, and so much more. Book by March 4th to catch Panama airfares on sale. Other conditions apply. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Panama getaway today.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we speak to Ms. Jennifer Weber, we're talking about, I like how you put it, freedom from smoking.
Yes, that's the name of the program. It is considered the gold standard program. It's from the American Lung Association. And interestingly, this program has helped 40 million people worldwide quit smoking. I read a statistic this morning that in the United States, there are now more people who have quit smoking than people who smoke. So it's encouraging and hopeful to think that the scales have started to tip in favor of people not smoking. And I think it's important that we define, what does smoking mean? It's use of tobacco, actually. I shouldn't just say smoking. It could be smoking cigarettes. It could be using what people call dip or snuff or chew, you know, like baseball players put in between their cheek and gum, or even vaping. Anything that's delivering that nicotine hit to you is a tobacco product.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing. We presumably, I think, have this correct. Even foods at times, like the barbecue or the smoke goods, in and of itself, could potentially be carcinogenic. Now, I'm not going to say definitively, for fear of someone saying, no, not correct. But we've heard that. But literally, taking some sort of tobacco product, inhaling it, ingesting it, somehow putting it in your system. We know that it has, as you mentioned, nicotine and 5,000-7,000 other known carcinogens, and yet we consciously do it.
Right.
It says a lot about the persuasiveness of it, the addictiveness of it, the appeal of it. I'm not even sure which word would even be the best adjective.
Right. I remember being on your show right here, and
I think you were right there.
It was years ago. It was years ago. We had an expert come here to Cayman to talk about smoking and why and how people can stop smoking. And at the time, he said, no matter what the product is, you have to remember it is designed to deliver nicotine to help you feel good. And none of it is good for you. None of it is healthy for you. And your body naturally produces the feel-good chemicals of serotonin and dopamine anyway. But if you smoke, having that nicotine, it triggers it faster and it's immediate within seconds. So people get addicted to that good feeling. And if people only understood that they don't need the nicotine to do that, if they just can wait it out, their body will naturally produce that same chemical free.
Something that, as you shared that, and I remember his numerous appearances and his presentations.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, if I recall it correctly, he said if you look at people and perhaps even the type of cancer, you could almost tell how they smoked, what they smoked. A pipe was this way, a particular tobacco product is this way, another one is that way. The way you inhale it, the way you position it in your, between your lips and the like. He's one of those experts that testified, before many of our trial, and we've seen significant jury awards in the U.S. against tobacco companies.
Yeah, and sometimes, in particular, golfers, it seems they like to smoke cigars when they golf. And they say, "Oh, it's just a cigar. I don't inhale. It's just in my mouth." Well, any of this kind of tobacco product increases your. None of it's healthy for you. Period. Full stop. But all of these products increase your opportunity to develop cancer, and not just lung cancer. We can get mouth cancer, lip cancer, head, neck, and throat cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer. Every kind of cancer is increased. The chance of getting it or developing it is increased by the use of tobacco products. And I remember that same expert talking about combustion.
Yeah.
That was a big word for him. And I remember thinking, combustion, well, so that inhaling of something that's on fire isn't healthy.
But it's interesting because we are in a space, and I'm hoping that as we have this discussion, that loved one, but in particular with the greatest respect, that individual that may have considered, but let me see if I can give this up, or may have tried countless times and just said, what, like my uncle, something will take anyway. Don't be like him,
Right.
Keep trying, see if this works for you.
Right, and think about every time you've tried to quit smoking. This program refers to that as practice quitting.
Yeah.
So you've practiced quitting, and maybe you quit for 3 weeks, maybe you quit for 3 days, 3 hours, 3 years. All that's good. Any amount of time that you've not smoked, if there's one cigarette that you haven't smoked, that's better than smoking it. And so we have to look at these things as a success. And it does take between 8 and 11 times for people to try to quit smoking on average. And those are times where people, maybe they just personally go, I'm not going to smoke this weekend. Or, maybe I'm just going to try it this way or that way. As people, maybe not making a big commitment or not telling others, just personally trying. This program called Freedom from Smoking, we are going to provide in the community free for people who are interested in trying to do it with the support of a group. And it can be used in conjunction with the products that often contribute to people doing better and add to their success. So we're talking about like the nicotine gums or the patches and some of those other products. When done together, the success rate of this program is quite good. And so if there are people who are listening who feel like, maybe I should maybe make more of a commitment. Maybe I should really try to quit smoking instead of just, telling myself, maybe I should try to find other people who are like me. And maybe it's going to be better if I quit smoking as part of a group. Maybe it'll help me feel more accountable. And maybe this is the way to do it, because sometimes it's hard to do things alone. And none of us like to admit that we need some help or support, but frequently we do. And things are better when we have support.
Exactly. I just I don't believe that internet search is synonymous with research, but pull up something and I'll share this, and it's not going to be my say, no, this is definitive nor exhaustive nor even necessarily the most accurate, because I don't know if I trust all these things sometimes, but there are credible institutions that can share stuff, from the U.S. and here. But it says, if you quit smoking, it improves your health status and enhances the quality of life, reduces the risk of premature death, and can add as much as 10 years to life expectancy, reduces the risk for many adverse health effects, including poor reproductive health outcomes, cardiovascular disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that's COPD, cancer, ED, and the like. Right? And then if you stop smoking after 3 days, most people will experience, moodiness and irritability. You give severe headaches and cravings as the body readjusts. But in as little as a month, your lung function begins to improve as the lungs heal, right? So they're healing, and the lung capacity improves. Former smokers may, notice less coughing and shortness of breath. But what's interesting that, if you stop smoking in 21 days, the brain biochemistry is returning to normal. In 15 days, 19 days, the risk of suffering from a heart attack starting to decline. So it's important. It adds a better quality of life. It improves your life expectancy. Now, that all sounds great. What can we do? When are these courses? Because everybody wants to have, more enjoyment, more life to the years, but more years in their life as well.
Yeah. So the first class is going to be offered at Cricket Square at a place called The Club. And that's going to start on March 8th. And it will be every Wednesday evening for 7 weeks in a row from 5:30 to 7:30. And if you like the voice that you're listening to, it will be me who is teaching that program. I was the first person in the group to complete the course, so I will be the first person to be providing the class. And if there is one person or if there are 10 people, we are going to do this course and see what we can do to help. This program is not about trying to convince somebody that they should stop smoking. This isn't a scare tactic. No one is going to be shaking a model of a black lung at you. No one is going to be saying, don't you understand this isn't good for you? No. This is about you deciding, you know what, I think I want to give it a try. I'm going to enter kind of a structured program. And I'm going to make the decision that on the 4th week of this course, I'm going to quit smoking and see how it goes. Yeah. And you tell other people, you have support, you make a plan. There are ways to manage your stress that are taught, and lots of other helpful tips that have worked for 40 million people around the world. So if you feel like you're unique and this wouldn't work for you, maybe you're 1 in 40 million, but maybe you're one of the 40 million. Maybe you could do it this way. Right. And isn't it worth a try?
It's worth a try. So after a break, remind us again, whether there's a cost and if so, and the like. And I'm hoping that as people listening, especially those who smoke and who have tried, perhaps those who are, really, really loving and caring about those who are in their lives that smoke. But also I want to ask about vaping, if I might, because sometimes, like we shared with the tobacco in the form of a cigar, we see it as, no big deal. Maybe it's not. So, as my daughter say, meh. Well, when we come back, let's tell us more.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh. Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Kim and Brack and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Barry's Golden Jerk, the Cayman Brac sensation, ranked the #1 restaurant in Cayman Brac by TripAdvisor and home of the authentic jerk. Barry's Golden Jerk, serving large portions of the best jerk chicken and pork. Open Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday near the airport, or call 917-6713. Barry's Golden Jerk. It's simply better.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thank you so much. And for a few minutes more with excellent company, if she doesn't mind me saying so publicly, Ms. Jennifer Weber, the Operations Manager of Conjo and Oncology.
At Health City.
At Health City. I was allowing my brain to advance much faster than what, I would, cautiously say I should speak on the radio. Because as we experience, we can talk really fast, so we can understand what we're saying, but no. And I slow it down. But no, seriously, it is prayerful, I think, that we would ask others to do. So anybody wants to be a part of this freedom from smoking.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, it's very easy. So if you want any information about this, you can send an email to this email address. Are you ready to listen and write this down? It's stop smoking, all put together, no space or dot between, stop smoking at Health City, all one word, Health City, no space or dot .ky.
Stop smoking at healthcity.ky.
So you email that, and that email is going to come straight to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can send you more information. And you can say, hey, can you send me some information so I can share it with my friend? Or, hey, I love the idea of this, and I've taught smoking cessation programs before. Can I become a facilitator? Sure. Or you can say, hey, I happen to be somebody who has access to a space in West Bay, for example, and I want to support this and let you use our church basement to have a program. If there are any questions, any way you want to support this program, you're welcome to. So Health City is actually sponsoring this, and it's something that makes me proud to work for Health City, actually, because Health City is about to open our new full-service cancer care center. We're going to have radiation, surgery, medical oncology, chemotherapy, everything right here on island. But that having been said, we're not looking for more customers. So we are trying to prevent cancer by doing this program. Years ago, there used to be more programs that were available to help people quit smoking, but then because of COVID and some other things, a lot of those programs just sort of died down.
Yeah.
I know that HSA, through Public Health, is still offering a program. I'm sorry, I don't know the schedule. I asked, but I didn't receive the information. Mm-hmm. Their program is called Stop Smoking. So you can contact them and see if their schedule or their program works best for you. But what Health City would like to do is plug in and offer classes when Public Health is not offering them, so that anybody during the year who has the desire to quit smoking has an opportunity to join a class. Yeah. And by having two classes available, hopefully someone will find a program that works for them. We're going to do it in West Bay. We're going to do 2 in Georgetown and 1 in East End. And we're going to start this program and continue it as long as we have people who are interested. Yeah. Sometimes people say, oh, well, at the Cancer Society, when you worked there, you should have talked more about preventing cancer instead of just diagnosing cancer. Well, this is one of the efforts. We are going to do everything we can to prevent it and make our community healthier, not only for the smoker themselves, but for everybody around them. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to promote early detection, because one of the things that I don't think people realize about smoking is that sometimes people say, oh, well, I feel good, so I don't have cancer. My lungs are fine. I've only smoked for this amount of time, or I only smoke this many cigarettes. It's not a big deal. I'm fine. I feel fine. Mm-hmm. Well, you might feel fine, but you don't realize that you have cancer, especially lung cancer, until it's advanced stage. And you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So you can get a low-dose CT scan if you're a smoker and you are willing to face your fear to find out how your lungs are. That's one of the early detection models. Or you can just keep smoking and wait and see how it goes for you.
And the thing is, and I'm mindful, and I say this carefully, but hopefully not just responsibly, but with a sense of an impassioned plea. Many would say, well, so-and-so smoked until they were 150.
We've all heard people say that.
Possibly, right? I'm not going to. But then so-and-so smoked, and by, a year, they're just beyond, what we would think is good living. Look what happens. We're all different. It doesn't matter if other people have been diagnosed with things that never smoked or otherwise. But if you can, increase your life quality, your life expectancy, why not?
Right.
That's why I eat chocolate, dark chocolate.
Well, and there are people who get diagnosed with serious illnesses, and they take medication, they go through surgeries, they do a lot to try to extend their life. Those are seriously difficult things. Likewise, if you try to quit smoking, it's a very difficult thing. No one is meaning to make light of this, but it's worth it because you're extending your life.
Exactly.
I want to say something about if you have somebody who smokes, one thing that you can do is try to be supportive of them. You have to try to see it from their side. You can't just go, that's not good for you. They know that.
Yeah.
But if you are consistently supportive and say, if you ever want to quit, I'm here for you. Yeah. Or, if you want to quit, the next time we have people over, I'll make sure that that I tell the other person who smokes that we're not smoking anymore in the house so that you aren't triggered. Or how can I help support you to make it so that you don't do you don't have the normal triggers that you have. Maybe if we barbecue, you feel like smoking when we're outside. We won't do that. Yeah. There are lots of things that people can do to help one another. And I think by doing some of those things, it might help people feel more comfortable being ready to try something and not be so afraid to try it for fear that maybe someone's going to tease them and say, oh, I knew you couldn't do it. Yeah. Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to be supported.
And many of us, whatever it is, we've tried and tried and tried and tried and it never worked. All that is that particular strategy didn't work. Try something else. It's just a practice run. Was it that we're reminded not to be a try but a failure? Right? And we keep doing it. I reflect on your earlier comment, Ms. Jen, that way back when smoking was cool. Smoking was encouraged. However, many years later, the physicians who were seemingly advocating for it or say, it's no problem, it'll add to weight loss and what have you, we see the research. Finally, the research becomes public. The public perception becomes one that isn't so positive. And over time, the fear, for instance, that they had in some jurisdictions that, the bars and the restaurants will lose money because people are not smoking, actually found they gain more money. The smokers weren't as unhappy as they said they did. We used to smoke on planes at the back of the aircraft. We don't do that anymore. We're still facilitating. But people have come to appreciate how addictive, how difficult, how even to them they may have resigned themselves. I'm not going to do this because it's impossible. Well, maybe it was on that particular, approach. Maybe this approach is the approach. Maybe this time is the time. So, and I want to say that to share that to watch people, struggle with it, to see them go through the therapies that they do, even if they continue to smoke during it. And we've all had friends and family that, chemo is one arm and cigarettes in the other. I mean, it's not trying to make light of it, but we've seen it.
Right.
It just shows you how much of a hold that thing has on them. Let's support them, let's remind them, and hopefully this thing would help them.
Yeah, and people can feel A lot of different feelings. People can feel embarrassed. They can feel like, oh, I feel like I'm weak because I can't stop smoking. This has, I don't want to admit that this has a control over me. Or, oh, it doesn't have control over me. I just do it because I like it. Or, oh, it's just this habit or whatever, no matter what it is. Sometimes people smoke in order to avoid things. To avoid particular feelings they may have. And so it can be a really big deal. You can lose your social group. If you're a smoker at work or you have people that you associate with, and that's what you guys do when you're together. Everybody has a cigarette together. Everybody has a glass of wine together. Whatever it is, you're risking a lot. If you decide to quit, you can lose that group of friends. You don't have that social opportunity. And so you have to make a big decision that either you're going to try to get everyone to do it with you as a group, or you are going to intentionally try to separate yourself from that area. And that's a big decision to make. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, you have the support. There's an effective program. I mean, what we are, 8 billion people in the world, 40 million have successfully done it. Statistically, that's not insignificant. If we were to apply that to ourselves, maybe it didn't work before. Try it again. Just keep trying and persevere. Who knows? 3 weeks off could lead to 3 decades, but start somewhere.
Right.
So email stopsmoking.
Stopsmoking@healthcity.ky. If you would like to be a participant in the class, and this program is free. It's free for the people who come. Health City will provide all of the classes, the location, the venue, the class materials. Heck, you'll probably get some snacks too. And so there's no economic barrier to you coming. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start the first session as sort of an information session. So if you're not sure you want to commit, but you want to come to the first info session, don't worry, I won't shackle you to the chair. You can come, you can find out more, and then you can make the decision about whether you want to continue week after week.
And I would ask, you correct me if I'm perhaps misspeaking, but even if you see it as just a cigar or vaping or whatever else it is that you're smoking, and I'll just use that word as general as possible, this can be for you. You get information, you'll benefit from it. The health consequences to your mind may not be. I smelled some of the vape products and I thought, wow, that has a beautiful smell to it. Don't know what it does. I know what the NDC has shared in terms of popcorn lung and this and that.
You're the only other person who I've heard say that, because I keep saying that and they're like, popcorn what? Popcorn lung, bubbles inside your lungs.
That doesn't sound like it. I mean, you eat popcorn, you get it in your teeth, right? You don't like that either. You imagine something worse inside. I have some really, really wonderful friends who smoke. They're the most considerate, just generous, great people. I worry sometimes that their health could be compromised, and I even worry even more sometimes that I may say something inadvertently that offends them, and I don't want this. But thankfully, being the good friends that they are, they know it's only said in love. Maybe this is the gift that we could give to some people and say, come check out the information session.
Right. And this isn't about, a group of perfect people would like to help other people become more perfect. That's not what this is.
That was yesterday.
all of us have difficulties that we face. All of us have, some kind of difficulty or something that we're working for, something that something about ourselves that we wish we didn't do, or that we wish we could change. There's everybody struggles.
Yes, well.
And we all do better when we band together and help each other. So this is just one more example of that.
Stand to you and Health City for underwriting the course and for facilitators being there at the venue. Stop smoking at healthcity.ky.
Right. And the other members, there's a fee to become certified through this program, and Health City is paying the fee for members of the community. I happen to be an employee of Health City who's going to be running this program, so I did it too. But I've been recruiting people who are interested in being community facilitators, and Health City will pay for them to be able to do it, because we just want people to be out in the community able to help others quit smoking.
Well, let us help you, because it helps the community and our overall health and well-being. whether if you're able to come in person or a quick phone call reminder, let us help. And all who are listening, I don't believe, but I'll say it again, no intent to shame, to embarrass, to offend. We just want you to be healthy. So thank you, Ms. Jen. May you enjoy a wonderful weekend. May there be many participants in the program, from the facilitators to those who want to stop smoking. All right?
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Let's pause and take a break. And if I can get Miss Susan, no, I won't. Just teasing. When you come back, we can take your calls. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
The Ministry of Tourism and Transport, with the support of Cabinet, has announced it has relinquished the Miss Cayman Islands Universe franchise. The ministry has advised the Miss Universe organization of this decision and has consulted with the chair of the local organizing committee. According to a statement released earlier today, Tourism Minister the Honourable Kenneth Bryan says he is hopeful that a private sector entity will step up and take over the franchise. In international news, China called for a ceasefire and peace talks between Ukraine and Russia in a vaguely worded proposal released Friday that analysts said was unlikely to deliver results. Beijing claims to have a neutral stance in the war that began 1 year ago, but has also said it has no limits friendship with Russia and has refused to criticize its invasion of Ukraine or even refer to it as an invasion. It has accused the West of provoking the conflict and fanning the flames by providing Ukraine with defensive arms. The plan released by China's foreign ministry mainly reiterated long-held positions, and analysts said Beijing would be an unlikely broker. Meanwhile, the U.S. has marked a year since Russia invaded Ukraine by announcing a new range of sanctions against Russia and new military aid for Ukraine. The latest restrictions target more than 100 entities, both within Russia and worldwide, including banks and suppliers of defense equipment. Specifically, the U.S. said it wants to stop those helping Russia exploit loopholes to get sanctioned materials. The White House's fresh round of aid for Ukraine is worth $2 billion. And parts of usually balmy Southern California are under their first.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
Health Services Authority is now offering online payment options for patients. Patients of HSA can now pay their bills, including deposits, towards scheduled services online at payments.hsa.ky. The secure, new online payment system accepts debit or credit cards and is in addition to the available payment options of cash, check, and online bank transfer. For quick, easy, and secure payment directly from your phone or computer, visit HSA's new online payment system at payments.hsa.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands. Hinton Roxroy Connolly was born in Creek, Cayman-Brac on 9th September 1937. Fondly known as Big H to his family and friends, following a 5-year career at sea, Mr. Hinton returned to Cayman-Brac, taking up work with Brac Power and Light Company for 3 years prior to moving to Grand Cayman, where he commenced employment with Cable and Wireless in March 1966. Big H would eventually move back to Cayman-Brac, working his way up from a linesman to a supervisor throughout the 29 years of employment with Cable and Wireless, eventually retiring in August 1994. Following his retirement, Mr. Hinton continued to do electrical work for the many people of Cayman-Brac. Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your Sister Islands.
Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
Upgrade your summer travel plans with non-stop flights from Grand Cayman to Panama. Panama airfares are now on sale from just $296 CI round trip. In just 2 hours aboard Cayman Airways, you can be in a land where the Caribbean meets the Pacific, where you'll find modern cities, rainforests, and so much more. Book by March 4th to catch Panama airfares on sale. Other conditions apply. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Panama getaway today.
Water Authority Cayman would like to advise customers along Pondexter Road of a planned service interruption on Sunday, the 26th of February, between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. to facilitate infrastructure work in the area. The service interruption will impact customers on Pondexter Road from Rex Creighton Boulevard to Patrick's Island Entrance Gate East. The Water Authority apologizes for any inconvenience these works may cause and thanks the public for your patience and understanding.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. And for half an hour or so until 1:30 or thereabouts, we're going to have some open line. It's a Friday. A lot of things to talk about, and we can give you some suggested topics you may want to pick up. A very lively discussion earlier this morning with Mr. Art Connor, as usual. He had today the Honorable Tourism Minister, excellent calls, and hopefully now perhaps we all listen and hear things and interpret and apply them in our own unique way. For me, as I listen to the comments, some may find them critical. I try to look at them as being constructive. If Dr. Steve McField doesn't mind, I think we all recognize him, respect him, and seeing him genuine love and commitment for the country in terms of excellence, wanting to people to have pride. And as he shares about the things that transpired decades ago or even centuries from the historical record or even in recent living memory, it's about understanding that we should be a people of excellence because we were a people of excellence. We should be people who constantly strive to raise the bar, who are willing to work and position Cayman so that its uniqueness, its originality, the thing that separates us in a positive way is highlighted. I give us an example, and this isn't to offend anybody. If you're offended, let me know, and I'll happily not only offer a genuine apology, but if you want to get into it as an argument, I'll accommodate you. I'm not going to shy away from a confrontation. It's not my nature. Very few of us are confrontational. But take, for instance, we did what probably very few would say was a bad thing. I can't think of anybody that would say it was a bad thing. We put these mats, as they call, along the beach to help people, especially those that may have some issues with mobility, to get in and especially out of the water. But ask yourself, from the aesthetic perspective, have we considered that the color of the mat against the wonderful white sand could have been a different color? If a different color, would it make the mat not as hot? Now, perhaps because we don't use it or because we don't think of that. Now, I can tell you I don't know whether the mat's coming in another color than the color that was installed. But if you think, for instance, the people who know will tell you that if you painted your roof a very dark color, it probably absorb more heat, and that would help to, heat your home. And as opposed to those winter climes where they get really frigid, that would be helpful. In the tropics, maybe a reflective color, lighter color would be better. Perhaps the same thing apply if you have a car park or a driveway that is the asphalt. It probably is a bit hotter than if there was another material. I don't have it before me, but I remember friends who are knowledgeable about the sector pointing to research being done by different universities that have indicated that they're developing surfaces and paints and the like that they can apply to surfaces that will reduce the amount of heat gain, the radiation and the like, from the roads to car parks to buildings. And if they do that, that would in itself significantly reduce how hot the surrounding area is. Now, there are probably challenges as to how to make that cost effective and how to deploy that particular strategy to changing the color of roads and the like. But again, through what, unlike, and again, be offended if you wish, unlike some of the nonsense recently we're hearing, but follow the science, this is actually science that is tested. That is what science is. You have an idea and you want to know if it can work, and you test it and retest it, and then people come along and they check it out and they critique it, and then you go, okay, let's improve it, so that it isn't about what, again, we're told that marketing and that sort of thing does, control the narrative, influence and persuade. This is about just raw analytical data that says, well, this is the hypothesis, this is the thing that we found out, let's make sure that it's legit. Again, unlike other stupidness that we hear from people who have no idea about what they're talking about, but they just repeat it. Say that to say that maybe we need to consciously consider where we are and what we're doing. And as wonderful as it is to ensure that people can get to the beaches, for instance, not only is that the access is unhindered, they can get in there without any sort of thing in their way of anything, whether it's construction debris, or whether it is an overhanging limb or a particular type of plant that is planted. I love bougainvillea. I think it's probably one of the most beautiful plants. But even if you're tending to it, be careful. The prickles are pretty sharp, and they would, as Susan would tell me, they say in Camelback, that we say in West Bay, those prickles would jug you, right? They can cause you a little bit of a discomfort. So you wouldn't want to put them in car parks where you open your doors. You probably wouldn't want to put them in pathways, unless, of course, there's either an inconsiderate thought or no thought at all, or it's deliberate. Whether that's malicious or otherwise, you be the judge. But again, if you go back to some of the properties adjoining the water, people tied a nice rope to a tree, or they anchored it in something, and that rope extended into the water. And many people, not just a person that it may be sort of challenged with their mobility, but maybe the surf is a certain way, maybe because of the weather. Now the beach access in and out has a little bit of a steeper incline. They hold on to it. Maybe you're coming up with something in your hand, whether that's one of your children, or whether it's a particular item that you were enjoying in the water, and you just help to stable yourself and exit the water. So putting the mats down help. But could the mats be something other than that sharp contrast against the beautiful white sand? Just a thought. Now, saying that to share that as we look at more and more ways to improve the quality of our life, improve that aesthetic that is around us in our lives, but to improve our health and well-being, what do? And also improve our actions. For us to take on board the things that, recognizing we can't unring the bell, we can't go back and change that thing that already transpired, but perhaps the thing that's going forward can be improved. Perhaps it needs to be a redesign. Perhaps we need to take a new approach. And people like Mr. Steve, I feel, reminds us of the importance of looking at what you did. Was it a good thing that you can replicate? Was it a good thing that can be improved? Was it something that you thought, boy, I wish we hadn't done that, and not repeat it, because it does not bring about that wonderful outcome, whether that was the intent or not. It is not. And this is where some of you might say, oh boy, you're venturing off into uncharted territory. But the way our world seems to exist, a good friend tried to explain it to me, and I'm still looking at it and trying to understand it. This notion of the cancel culture. So we're taking something today, and we're applying today's values and approach to that thing, which way back when was okay, or at least it wasn't as bad as it would be today. Not saying that we should forgive, ignore, or somehow forget atrocities or ill behavior, but if you're taking someone and holding them to a standard today for things they did, 4 decades ago, not criminal behavior, not even forgiving unethical behavior, but we can't sort of, or can we? You be the, certainly would be inclined to hear your perspective on it. Now, if we say, listen, as an example, should be an easy one, but again, it may run in some people's mind to be inappropriate. But take smoking. It may have been that we smoked on the plane, we smoked in restaurants, we smoked in public spaces, we, if I'm not mistaken, probably even smoked in hospitals. For whatever reason, and let's go on the premise that we finally, without any sort of, contradiction or anything, become convinced that smoking in those places not necessarily the best. Perhaps even convinced that smoking in itself is not healthy for us. But let's say it's just a former, and we're not going to smoke here because little children are around, or we're not going to smoke here because it's a flammable liquid nearby. Maybe those things in and of themselves may sound sensible, so let's apply that. But then let's think about other things that we may be doing today that we know should not continue in that way, but we still do it. I'll give us as a simple example, a presentation by some individuals who, and I'm going to sort of represent it slightly out of the interest of who and where and when it was shared. But then an example was, if you have public governance and you have, in the Cayman context, this was not what was referenced, but it was made perhaps easier for me to share it with you. We have certain laws against anti-corruption, standards in public life and the like. And if the societal will is that this should be the ethos, you do this thing and this is how it's done for one and for all. I didn't ask his permission, but he had said it publicly a number of times. I don't think I misunderstood what he said, nor am I recalling it incorrectly. Mr. Ezra Miller, when he was an elected parliamentarian for that tranquil district of Northside, had shared, if we're going to rezone property, for instance, should we just rezone that particular piece of property that would benefit that owner or owners? Should we rezone the area? Especially if we're going to go from a present zoning, like say residential or agriculture, to a zoning that is resort or hotel tourism or neighborhood commercial or something that would give that land significant value because of its new zoning. Why not the adjoining parcels or the adjacent parcels? Again, he, Mr. Edzemiller, shared as an example, if you're going to be granting concessions, and the concessions are for a particular type of business or a particular type of development, should that be published in such a way that says, if you come and you look at the concession, this is what you need to have. There is the information available. He said, you come to the glass house, you pick up your pamphlet, and you go away, and for one and for all exactly what it is. So I use this as an example, and listening to the presentation, it said that if you take Transparency International and others that talks about good governance, how do you not only reduce the prospect of corruption, but also the perception of corruption? What may be the accepted practice in a certain place, because that's the norm, doesn't necessarily mean that it is ethical, even if it's not necessarily illegal because of the lack of legislation. But if in the Cayman context, as we look at good governance, then can we continue to ensure that we're constantly raising the bar? And then the other thing that was sort of asked was, at what point is the general public, and should it only be the general public, all residents, whether they're of age or majority or older, or should it only be for the voter who is consciously aware of what its government is doing relative to its published budget? Again, the presentation was in terms of public governance and the like. How many of us are aware of what the government's budget is in our jurisdiction? So in the Cayman context, it's a national budget. In many jurisdictions, there are many budgets, from the city council to even sub-budgets of budgets. But in our context, we have a budget. It's for 2 years. It's X dollars. But do we know? And is it presented in a way that not only is it now this public document that's available, whether you get a hard copy or you get it online somewhere, but is it presented in a way that we are able to look at it and understand what it is? Now, as the presenter shared, many times people put things out in the domain. It's there. You can't deny that they haven't given you information, but it's done in a way that if you really want to find what it is, you need to know what to look for and where to look for it, because it can be so voluminous, so many pages hidden just within so much other information. Not that the suggestion was, or that I'm inferring otherwise, that is deliberate to hide. It's just that it's not. Now, is that on the media to go through it? Perhaps to some extent. Is it on the way it's presented that information goes to the public in a way that makes sense? Or we get so much information that sometimes we ignore consciously. Oh, I can't look at that now. That's just too many pages. But other times, are we conscious of the information we're sharing? Some of us may have read the book, Speak So Your Child Will Listen. Some of us may have, in taking public speaking classes, may say, well, know your audience, What's your audience? Who's the audience? What is it that you're trying to say to them? It's one thing to get up as a presenter and say something and it sounds intelligent. It's actually factually accurate. It's great. But your audience has no clue what you said. With respect to my friends who had the aptitude and the discipline to study medicine, for instance, and if they were talking to some of us and they used their regular medical jargon that they would speak to their colleagues in discussing some particular procedure otherwise, many of us would probably want to pay attention, would probably understand one or two of the words, may try to get the gist of what was said, but probably come away going, sounded great, sounds convincing, but I'm really not quite sure what was said. Now, not that that would necessarily happen in a case like that, but if it was that the same physician is now, in a school trying to encourage, the young 4 or 5 year olds to be doctors, that presentation that they would give at a conference of, colleagues would not be the same presentation that they would give for those 4 or 5 year old children thinking about a career in medicine. Or would it? I say that to share that in this context. I'll give us an example, and I hope that through this someone would also ask the question. Hopefully I'll be mindful to do likewise more formally. But we heard the press release recently that the government, through one of the local banks, attained $150 million. And some people have asked the question. Now, as I said to the individual, I would normally have quickly followed up on it, but I had other things that were more pressing. This is already something that is done. It's not just that it's an excuse to say, well, that's above my pay grade, but it's a done deal. It's nothing you can undo. But the question was, is this 150 million an additional, or is it part of the amount that was already pre-approved at 400 or 450? And I only share to say that there are many times we are misinformed. We're not quite sure because we don't recall correctly, or we paid somewhat attention to it, knew a little bit about it, but that was yesterday. I got other things to do today. Only to share that in the discussions, oftentimes, unless the person is truly intent on understanding without maligning, understanding so that they're better edified, many times we repeat things that, well, perhaps had we given it some thought, could, have resulted in something other than people feeling slighted. Now, it comes back to us making a conscious effort to understand and to know, and then us who are presenting information be as best as we can, make the information in a way that others can understand, so there is very little opportunity for misunderstanding. Again, many people say, well, you're making it too easy. Well, are we making it too easy for people to be ill-informed, for people to draw inferences that at the end of the day could cause people to feel that they were represented in a less than positive way? Well, everybody seems to have a perspective and many an agenda, because in their minds it just makes good conversation. Perhaps it makes them feel better because others are not necessarily looking as good. Well, I'm reminded that a rising tide floats all the ships. So if we strive for excellence, if we go back to something that we heard a long, long time ago, that perhaps now we don't even repeat it. When it comes to government, we're talking about openness and accountability and transparency. Well, a good friend, oftentimes has reminded me that, one of the tenets that we should never forget in law is that not only should justice be done, it should be seen to be done. Just some food for thought. More than happy if you invite me to the game of dominoes, as you teach me how to, do more than just match the numbers. Maybe you can educate me and encourage the dialogue, share the information, and be as instructive as we can, so that we constantly raise the bar. Excellence, I think, begets excellence. Ignorance is definitely not bliss. And as much as it would be nice sometimes to ignore the obvious, the guarantee that we have is that the sun will rise and set. The one that we don't is that we would see it. Now, sadly, when we're consciously invited to watch the sunset, or preferably, the moon rise, do we avail ourselves of that? No. That's perhaps a discussion that you may want to consider. All right, 949-8037, 949-6990, toll free at 1-800-534-8255. We're going to pause, we'll take the break, as Miss Susan averts her eyes from me and casts them to herself. She's reminding me that when we come back from the break, our guests, as scheduled, have been assembled, and they'll enter our studio, and we want to tell you who they are. But first, we want you to listen to our messages and then join us. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Upgrade your summer travel plans with non-stop flights from Grand Cayman to Panama aboard Cayman Airways. Explore the modern city, rainforests, historic towns, the Panama Canal, and so much more. Panama airfares are now on sale for just $296 CI round trip. Book by March 4th. Other conditions apply. You can call 949-2311, contact your travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Panama getaway today.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Dwayne specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Radio Cayman News.
Concerns last night's public meeting about the east-west arterial extension.
If there can be a solution found that is less damaging to our central mangrove wetland system.
Several of the roundabouts will be skirting the mangrove.
It has to be more valuable to our country to protect it than to go build a road in there.
I really think for the first meeting it was really good.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And really honored to be able to not only have this discussion, as we highlight sometimes that in our society we have strong academics who constantly inspire and nurture that pursuit of educational excellence, and we get to share it with the public. So once again, we get a chance to speak to Dr. Stephanie Cooper Fullerton. I'm going to get used to that hyphenated. Dr. Steph, how are you?
Fullerton Cooper, yes.
Fullerton Cooper.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us again.
Oh, ma'am, it's always a pleasure. I think when we can live in a small community and we can see each other on the campus of our schools, in the car park, so where we work, in the supermarkets,
kind of our meeting spot.
Yeah. And all right, 37, I think. And Dr. Smith, if you follow us on YouTube or Facebook, see that handsome fella that you might mistake. Was that a Vin Diesel? No, that was Dr. Livingston Smith.
Delighted to be here, Dwayne.
How are you, sir?
Delighted to be here.
All right, you're looking sharp. Yeah. And I'm always inspired that many times it is our homes, our parents primarily, who through that love of reading, through that active sort of demonstration of reading, you pick up something and read. It may be initially some part of the newspaper, it may be a particular journal, and over time you read. And with you guys and your colleagues in particular, that translates into academic pursuit, increased research and studying, publication, and then at some point in history we have a body of knowledge.
Yep.
And
and we're trying to build a strong body of knowledge on Cayman research. So we are today representing the Committee for the Promotion of Research and Cayman Scholarship, and we've been promoting that through conferences. We had a symposium focused on J.A. Roy Bodden's works recently, and we are just anxious to promote Cayman scholarship and Cayman scholars. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes when we look at, relatively speaking, young jurisdictions, we seem to not have the same level of expectation. The buildings aren't that old, the institutions are not that established, the people, and yet within the Caribbean in general, but in Cayman in particular, we have a lot. Is it that we're not looking hard enough, or we're not willing to look at all?
Actually, I think there's a whole lot more there than we probably think. I think there are lots of persons in the Cayman Society who are doing something research-based, or who are studying or just exploring new areas of thought. They might be expressing that through texts that are not accessible to all, or they might be doing so through the newspaper that is accessible to all. But there's so much happening in Cayman. Yeah. So much.
Dr. Smith, I use this word as Dr. Stephanie mentioned, scholarship. And I wonder to what extent some of us, in hearing that, will have a particular connotation and immediately put it to the margin.
Possibly, because the term sometimes might suggest some exclusivity, but it really is not, you know. Scholarship, as far as I'm concerned, is just the ability to take something, a topic, think through it clearly, spend some time researching that topic, and seeing what others think about it, and developing your own thoughts about it. Right. All right. So once you're able to spend some time reading, that's critical, contemplating, reflecting, and nurturing your own position on something, you are on your way to be a scholar. And and just to bring in Dr. Michaela Scott, yes, who is the subject of our being here today. Now we are just delighted, Dwayne, when we can say that this individual came out of the public school system. I will make a plug for, of course, UCCI.
How could we not?
As you should.
Yes, as you should. Because, you know, Dwayne, many people don't realize the extent to which the students who leave UCCI, they find themselves in universities of the best kind in England, in Canada, USA, and so on. The other day, for example, I come back to Bikina, somebody called excited to say to me, Dr. Livingston, guess where I'm going to do my LLB? University of London. So wonderful. She completed her bachelor's at UCCI. You know what I'm saying? And those are top-rate schools. Yes. Top-rate schools, all right? So so they leave there, and some of them go on to their master's here and their PhD elsewhere. But McKenna, though, did her associate degree at UCCI, and then went on to the USA, where she did her master's, and then her bachelor's, master's, and then completed a PhD at Temple, at a very good university. And the subject of her doctoral work was Cayman. Right? Now, there's a young Caymanian thinker, scholar, and for her to have spent time contemplating issues and nurturing the discipline required.
That's, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's a discipline you have to nurture. It requires you to spend time on this, examining the issue. She examined issues with Cayman in multiple ways. You have to start by saying, okay, what have others done about it before? And in researching, you have to have some research methodology. You know, how I get my information, and having gotten the body of information, how do I analyze it and present some findings that are noteworthy? She has done that, and that's why she has completed her doctoral program, which is Dr. Michaela Scott.
Yes,
and she's going to be presenting, Dwayne, a lecture, online lecture, on March the 2nd. That is Thursday coming, at 6 p.m. It's online, and we're going to give you detail. That's the way you can find to click on and enjoy her presentation. She's going to be talking about what she researched on and her findings, and I believe that it is a subject worthy of paying attention to.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I'm hoping that increasingly, Dr. Steph, as you reference, that we look at scholarship study, as we look at that discipline, what I would say the resolve that you should have in order to gain information, to present information. And the word scholarship for some may imply that, you know, it's going to be esoteric, you know, and it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't.
No.
And I wonder too, as we look at education, we consider the teaching and learning modalities, if we are somehow, just as you shared, you know, that information may be in a text format. Wonderful as it is, that we need to somehow formalize that, and the scholar sort of nature of that information can translate into something that results in publication. But making that transition, as an example, I love to read. My desire to research is only for my edification. But to do the notation, oh man, that's because it's tedious, but it's essential.
It's essential.
And it's a process that can be taught.
Right.
And maybe that's where we, through this, can encourage others to say, you too can get this. It isn't just for your own academic pursuit. It is for the wider body of knowledge.
Remember now, we can have presentations through multiple forms because we have multiple learners, and you're correct. Someone might not want to have picked up Dr. McKenna Scott's thesis to read how many hundreds of pages, but here we are presenting her work on a topic that we can all relate to, the Cayman Islands, and we're doing so through an online platform. You know, so it will be broken down. It will be presented at the level where just about everyone in the audience will be able to relate. And it's about a topic we're all familiar with.
Yeah. And as we talk about it, maybe you would indulge me just to share again to parents, only because I've recognized it. So a friend who was a teacher in another jurisdiction, way back when, everybody who increasingly now has one of these little devices. I don't know what word to use anymore for them, because they're absolutely fantastic, but they're a bit of a nuisance sometimes, right?
Oh, yes.
And we may, as more mature heads, I wouldn't call ourselves older, look at them as a leash, all right? She decided, you know what, my students have these. How can I leverage that?
Oh, yes.
Right? So in the classroom, everybody got theirs. Okay, you're allowed to have it, but these are the parameters. And so we're going to do an exercise and
absolutely. No longer a disruption. It becomes a tool, a learning tool. Oh, yes, we're doing that in all our classes and making sure.
We're doing this now. I mean,
absolutely.
This was a few decades ago.
Okay.
And she got chastised by her administrators for using it. And she says, well, why hide it? They're there. And it becomes part of what you are so that they become engaged. Now, it can work if you make it work. And I only use it as a reference to ask. If as a public we're conscious of the great things that you and your colleagues are doing at UCCI and engaging your students. So back to Dr. Scott's, sort of dissertation on Cayman. We think we know. We are surprised increasingly how much we don't know, and the more we learn, it's amazing. If he doesn't mind, Ray Banker, I want to just comment and commend him again publicly. We do the See What I'm Saying show. He takes a topic about Cayman. The last one, we're talking about a maritime history and the trading with the Nordic countries. Now, some of us were great in geography, some of us didn't pay attention in geography. But if you look at the map, Cayman is here, and Sweden and Norway and those places are not next door. They're a good little ways away. And then by a boat, it probably takes a little while. We're traveling and trading with them. Surprises many, but it just shows you what we would know if we had. So, Dr. Stanley, from that perspective, was there two things? Surprising, Dr. Scott's thesis and the information that she gave, anything in there that stood out for you? As you share with us, her thesis and the information that she was able to research and present.
Okay. McKenna Scott had presented at the symposium that we were looking at, Mr. J.A. Roy Bodden, and she talked quite a bit about how Mr. Bodden's work had influenced what she looked at. She'll be presenting on the topic Deconstructing the Cayman Islands as Paradise, reimagining notions of freedom and unfreedom in a colonial Caribbean context. So, of course, it's a probe into Cayman's history, and I'm always interested in that. Like I've always said, we go back to understand the present and to make plans for the future. So for me, the historical aspects, I remember in her presentation a short while ago, she talked a lot about Cayman's women as well. For me, that's fascinating. Like I said before, anything that she speaks about, because the focus is Cayman, we'll be able to relate to. There is something that is relevant for those of us who listen in.
Yeah. And, Dr. Smith, I know many of us, probably our first introduction to you and of you were your writings in one of the local papers relative to the political landscape, as it were. And increasingly, it encouraged many of us to rethink what is it that we were taught. But Dr. Scott, I hope she doesn't mind. I still see her, as you probably do. This young lady, very studious, but searching like many. Where am I going to take my academic pursuits? Her parents encouraging her. Her mother, I wouldn't want to say, may have been my educator, because then I might cause people to think that I'm not as young as I look. So, so when we come,
no one should ever think that.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Thank you. So when we come back from the break, can we talk more about it? And hopefully, Miss Teresa Louis Pitcairn will be able to join us as well.
Yes, excellent.
All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
J&M Money touching down again. Now you can send your US dollars at any location on island, including the BRAC. It's easy. Just walk with your US dollars. No need to convert to CI. This is another convenient service available at J&M Money. They always find a way to make it easier and hassle-free. So remember, when you need to send your money and you only have US dollars, don't ever think of what to do. Just head straight to any J&M Money location and send your money the fast, convenient, and affordable J&M Money. J&M Money, touching down again. J&M Money, ranga to la friend.
105.3 Breeze FM live. Now it's Naya Man Bushman represented for 105.3 Breeze FM.
Hey, this is DJ Lynn. Join me Sundays from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Breeze 105.3 for Beach and Reggae Sundays. Whether you're out in a boat, in the backyard, or simply on the beach catching some sun, it's the perfect way to unwind for the weekend as the sun sets on our beautiful Caribbean Sea. Join us this Sunday from 2 p.m. on Breeze 105.3 Beach and Reggae Sundays. For government schools, standard student registration for the 2023-2024 academic year starts March 1st. Register your child online at schools.edu.ky by May 31st or take advantage of the late registration option from June 1 to 30th. Only applications submitted on or after March 1st will be processed for the 2023-2024 academic year. Brought to you by the Department of Education Services.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Dr. Livingston Smith, Dr. Stephanie Fullerton Cooper. A name like that can only be an academic. No, thank you very much. I'm hopeful that as we continue our discussion, as we focus on Dr. Scott, that the initial attempt at getting people to appreciate that the word scholarship doesn't have to speak to a specific audience, doesn't have to have that connotation that it's over here. It's just about knowing something. Yes. Many of us have fathers and parents and grandparents that, because of the nature of the time that they, were reared, academic education wasn't accessible.
Yes.
But they're absolutely scholarly. Yes. They know so much, not just in terms of their wisdom that they impart, but the knowledge that they have. And so if we think of it in that context, perhaps we might get over.
And Dwayne, as you mentioned that, we've had persons of great significance in terms of intellectuals who never really went to university in a formal sense.
Right.
I speak, for example, of a man called C.L.R. James. Now, C.L.R. James is called the Shakespeare of the Caribbean. I mean, wonderful books on cricket and politics and ideas. Never went to university, but he read a lot. Marcus Garvey, for example, didn't really go to university, but those guys just spend time reading, and that is really the key thing. You have to want to an appetite for reading and wanting to know. All right, Dwayne, I'm just conscious that some person might be listening and want to get a detail about the lecture.
Yes, please.
So the lecture is going to be on Thursday, 6 o'clock. It's an online lecture, and you can find the Zoom details if you go to letmelive.ky. Just type that in on your computer, and the information is there. And It's also on Let Me Live KY Facebook and Instagram. And we're going to be, constantly putting it out there. All right? Just in case you don't get information, just call me 916-6462. 916-6462, but it's also on letmelive.ky. The Zoom details.
And this is where many of us watch TV or videos or, but when it comes to, say, a lecture, whether it's even a part of a class that you're taking, I don't know if it's the way we've been trained in indoctrination, but we approach it in a different way. A friend of mine, and I was asked to share this, he's an academic, he teaches now and again, and he says, if you can get students to approach this lecture like they would their favorite TV show, where they're paying attention, and yes, they may have pen and paper or some other mechanism to take note, do that. But look at it with the intent that you want to remember, you want to pay attention, and somehow train the mind that it isn't this thing that's supposed to create in your mind this immediate impediment that, I got to pay attention. He has a trick that he shared. A particular student who struggles with, that sort of interaction. But when they're watching their favorite, sort of show, they'll bring a particular food item. Right? And he says, take it this way. Take half the food item and just have it there and slow it down so that you're not doing it constantly like how you would. And it keeps your attention. And he says it's worked. So maybe he's improved the way he delivers lectures, or maybe the students take it on board. And I want to say that to share that let's not ignore the information that we have available, and let's not preclude ourselves from being a participant because that's at the school. So we're going to learn much.
We're going to learn much. And we're going to enjoy it. I think it might be important to explain that McKenna only last year defended her thesis successfully. We're so proud of her. We really just want to hold her up as an example to so many of our youth in Cayman who are equally pursuing their studies. McKenna Scott did it, Dr. Scott did it, so you can as well. So we do want persons to understand that she's still overseas, which is why we're doing an online lecture. That's the major reason. But she is anxious to share with her Cayman public, and I think it would be lovely if we came out in our numbers to this lecture, came out, figuratively speaking, online, so we can cheer her on and let her know, as she has devoted so much time and effort to exploring the Cayman reality, that we appreciate that, we want to be part of that. I think it would be lovely, especially if, like you said, some of our teachers were to put together some of their students to join in, learn, not just learn from what she's presenting, but see her as exemplary and something you can, aim for as well.
You can equally aspire to that, right, Dr. Smith?
Yes.
And it's now, from her defense, I remember when I last spoke with her, and I recall time prior to that, she's just thinking about her studies. Like any student, you have particular considerations, not the least of which do I want to put this amount of time in, but she persevered.
She did.
And
we celebrated with her.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And part of what is so important about scholarship, to use the term you're using, is the requirement that you be disciplined. And to spend time with the subject that you're studying, to find something creatively new, because of course the PhD requires that you're adding some new knowledge. That new knowledge can be a different way of seeing something. It can be analytical knowledge, a way of an old subject seen differently. All right. So in the case of McKenna, she did her studies. In terms of her methodology, she used both types of methods. She was qualitative. She had a survey of over 400 Caymanians.
Wow.
And then she also sought to buttress that with qualitative, which is, of course, she interviewed in depth a significant number of other persons to get to what she wanted to find out. And of course, should have done a whole lot of reading on the subject and to make sense of it, and to write up her thesis, her dissertation, which was a pretty big body of work. But just a few more things doing about McKenna. She's an educator and cultural researcher, and she has been focusing her research on at university in a city called Africana Studies, and that's what has interested her, even though her subfields are Caribbean history and political thought. All right, so she has a master's in African American Studies from Temple, and she went on to do her doctoral research there. But she'll also publish in a number of journals, and she's making a name for herself at Temple, all right, in the USA, and she's a really good example of what can be achieved in terms of academic achievement and what it means for the society. I keep on saying, Dwayne, the society is built not just by the buildings that are there. It has to do with the creativity of the mind, and the encouragement of persons to pursue, intellectual endeavors also.
Yeah. And as you share that, I'm hoping that we would quickly draw alongside and realize that yes, we need the physical buildings for our schools or auditoriums and the like. But here's an opportunity for a wider audience, perhaps for some more conveniently, they can be more comfortable. We can leverage the technology, have a presentation. I'm going to call it a lecture and information session, and we can engage in that without having to maybe leave our desk if we're still at work.
Exactly.
Perhaps leave our couch if we're at home. We have many of us have these, TVs, I guess that's what they call, that are internet enabled, so we could watch it there. Perhaps we draw alongside and make it a movie night, quote unquote, with our children, our workers. I mean,
I think what you're saying is there's no excuse to not be part of it.
I didn't want to put it that way. I want to show them the opportunities exist.
The various methods you could use, you could utilize for joining. Yes, absolutely. I'm just again thinking of the many teachers who could, with their year 10, year 11, year 12 students, just be part of this. Give a paper to write as a result of it or something. But certainly just to come along, like I said, to learn, to be part of what is happening, and to just look at Cayman through Dr. Scott's lenses.
As we welcome, I won't talk too much out of school, but those who are joining us increasingly on YouTube and on Facebook, because we have such excellent guests in our studio that it would be, I think remiss not to be able to see them, physically as well. So, Ms. Teresa Lewis-Pitcairn, you yourself is a strong academic. Your undergraduate studies, your pursuit of your legal education is still inspiring people. This opportunity for you as an individual, if I may ask, and for what you would see through the presentation for the wider Cayman community, what does this do to you? How does it speak to you?
It's one of those things. So my husband is one of my greatest critics, but he's also one of my best supporters as well. Yeah. And this morning, I woke him up at 4. Poor guy. And I said to him...
You should buy him some chocolate. He's such a wonderful gentleman.
He likes chocolate.
Yes, ma'am.
The whole Pitcairn clan, except me, likes chocolates.
Despite that, we still like you.
Genetic.
But he's an amazing gentleman, honestly.
Yeah. So I woke him up and I said, John, I can't sleep because I want to do justice to this conversation, albeit brief, that we're going to have today. And I reminded him that when I went to York University, it's a long story with that, I ended up doing a first degree. I was supposed to do economics. And within the first week that I was there, I was told, no, change your major to political science. Yeah. And I graduated top of my year when I was at York, got a scholarship to do a PhD in political science. But by this time, I had already asked, because Mr. Hunter, he was then with Hunter & Hunter, one of the partners from Bordentown, the history of teaching and learning. Can I shout out for Bordentowners with that?
I'll accept that. I mean,
yeah. Unrivaled. And but I'd already accepted that scholarship with Mr. Hunter to do law. And I remembered, him saying, T, it's really, really unfortunate because, and I didn't know what political science was. I had never read a book about culture in a real sense until I did my first year at York. We had the Caribbean Student Association. I didn't know anything about George Lamin, Castle of My Skin. I never didn't know. And I said, me in pride, I don't like to be caught, not knowing. So joined the Caribbean Student Association, and I was forced to get engaged in understanding a little bit more about our culture, I would definitely want to be involved with this. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why we're here, to encourage that cerebral analysis and to encourage reading, because, you know, that's really, really important.
Knowledge through exploration. Now, we're going to go to the news break. Hopefully, Dr. McCann can join us. And hopefully, people make a note next Thursday. It's easy, and we're going to share with them. So please join us right after the break.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency has released its Climate Change Risk Assessment Report. The final evidence report of the Climate Change Risk Assessment identifies, scores, and ranks 50 risks related to biodiversity and habitats, the economy and society in the Cayman Islands. The full Cayman Islands Climate Change Risk Assessment Technical Evidence Report and non-technical summary document are available for review at gov.ky. In international news, Ukraine's leader is giving qualified support for China's new pronouncements about the war in his country, saying Beijing's interest is not bad. China has shown its thoughts. I believe that the fact that China started talking about Ukraine is not bad, President Vladimir Zelensky said at a news conference on the first anniversary of the Russian invasion. China called for a ceasefire and peace talks between Ukraine and Russia in a vaguely worded proposal released Friday that analysts said was unlikely to deliver results. California and other parts of the West faced heavy snow and rain Friday from the latest winter storm to pound the U.S., while thousands of people in Michigan shivered through extended power outages wrought by one of the worst ice storms in decades. The National Weather Service warned of a cold and dangerous winter storm that would last through Saturday in California. And a winter heat wave, record low levels of rain, and a startling lack of snow in Europe are pushing rivers, canals, and lakes across the continent to alarmingly low levels, with experts warning there could be a repeat of last year's severe droughts. Images of dried-up riverbeds and shrunken lakes are usually associated with the scorching heat of summer, not the winter. But an exceptionally warm and dry start of the year is affecting a swath of Europe, including central and southwest France, northern Spain, and northern Italy. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Between the traffic, the meetings, kids' activities, there just isn't enough time. Best Health Pharmacy was a game changer. Not only are they centrally located on Eastern Avenue, but they deliver prescriptions for free anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. I could not believe it. When my prescription ran out, they ran it back to me. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor, offering free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358. Best Health Pharmacy. Your health, your convenience is their priority.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks very much for joining us in the studio, Dr. Livingston Smith, Ms. Teresa Lewis-Pitcairn, and Dr. Stephanie Fullerton Cooper. And, we're speaking about Dr. McCann Scott. Hey, that sounds so
sweet.
Yeah.
It sounds sweet. Absolutely sweet.
I know her parents won't mind us saying, "Oh, we remember little McCann," but she might want to, Ms. Teresa, us to reference her like that. But just during the last segment before we went to the break, Dr. Stephanie was reminding us, here is a student who consistently applied herself through that diligence, that sacrifice and commitment, persevered, and now sits, with her academics at this stage with a wonderful, addition to her credentials in terms of academia, inspiring for me more than us, more of us who, hey, I know who she is. I know her parents. We went to school together. And that inspiration is what can nurture and encourage and uplift. Perhaps, Teresa, we used to use the phrase nation build. maybe this is one other aspect of that nation building exercise.
For sure.
I'm wondering, but we're going to try to get Dr. O'Connor on the phone in a second. And with that, though, share with us, though, Dr. Stephanie. I mean, it's one thing to be inclined, as I think all of us here would and have and would glad to do again, read others' dissertation. We're not helping them to defend it. We're not critiquing it. It's now published and accepted, and we're just learning from it and maybe be inspired. But then there are those who will say, no, that 500 pages and 10 years of research now, that's just too much. Just give me the Cliff Notes.
The Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. But you've seen it, and not to give away from the presentation, we'll try to connect up to it in a second. But what do you make of her body of research? What's the gist of where she's at? And Dr. Smith, what about you? I mean, because you're the
I could read Dwayne
Okay.
the what is called her abstract,
Mhm.
and she sent an abbreviated version of her
Uh-huh.
abstract, which of course is the kind of the essence of her dissertation, all right?
Mm.
And to put it in my own words, she focused on deconstructing, and the word deconstructing means trying to see what is there in this thing called colonialism. What does it actually mean?
Mhm.
She focused on Commandant's views of independence, views to do with how they perceive their current reality
Mhm.
in that context. And this is interesting, Dwayne, because each generation brings something different to whatever exists, all right? And it's important that we hear from the younger generation on old topics, all right? So she's bringing what I think is the generational look at it, all right, on the big issues, all right? So she says that much of the current literature interrogates the colonial presence in the Caribbean in a historical context. However, this research is interested in how modern-day manifestations of colonialism, economic, cultural, and so on, impacted understandings of agency and freedom. This project centers Caymanians and their understanding of their own humanity outside of what they provide to others, as this work seeks to disrupt the concept of paradise in the Caribbean. So, and that's the nature of something like a dissertation. You want to look again at how things are, all right? And that's what she's looking at, essentially.
And I think that's where it's probably crucial to re-examine things. The student, whether it's the high school student or whether it's that first-year college student, you've come to something that you never knew before, and it brings an interest in you. But then, say 10 years later, you're sitting, depending where you are, 10 years is probably a reason, your final dissertation now for your PhD, and there's this impaneled group that is going to critique you, and you have to defend it. That in itself is intimidating. All these years of research, you're questioning, did I understand this right? Did I present it convincingly? And you're defending it. Not unlike...
I've been thinking about Teresa's chance of doing her PhD.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, she went on to do law. I'm joking. Because she would have been a brilliant university professor.
The thing is, when I considered what Mikana is trying to address,
yes,
it's like the white elephant in the room.
Yes.
Because one, will our kids have considered the importance of colonialism? Do they know what it is? There was a point that was made recently, I think, by Frank on what Dr. Frank Macfield, about what does it mean to have a community that is populated by slaves, but it's not a homegrown plantation environment, because that is something that you want to, marinate to see what that really, really means. Symbols, for example, are very important. What does it mean if we had a Cayman flag rather than a British flag? What does it mean when we say God save the Queen or king, soon to be king, or versus having our own selves as leaders. The constitutional experience that we've inherited is one that really dictates having a party system. We don't have, we still struggle with actually grappling around the concept of a party system because of the way we have evolved. You know, so there's that incongruous nature between these paradigms.
Right.
You know, so and these are some of the things that I'm hoping
Right.
will come through with this type of engagement.
But that study, Ms. Teresa, and the notion that for some, it's almost akin to the student having to choose between sport and perhaps an instrument, between playing one sport and another sport, or even worse, between sport or in the arts and academics. We get to a space where, if Ms. Teresa would allow us to use her as an example, I'm glad that she was going to pursue economics. I'm kind of disappointed that she didn't, you know. But it isn't by nature something we're drawn to certain things, and the study of philosophy or political history or the like can cause in us that spark to be ignited that we didn't realize, and the university brings that up. Now, is this Dr. Scott on, Ms. Susan? Wow.
Well done. Awesome.
Hey, you see the diligence of the team here? This is where they came on. It is amazing. So, my wonderful guests, if you would be so inclined to accept my invitation to don your freshly sanitized headsets, you know, with the compliments of the excellent team that we have here. Those who are joining us, Dr. Fullerton Scott, Ms. Teresa Lewis-Began, Dr. Livingston Smith, and on the phone, hey, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. Being diligent paid off. I was having some problems calling in, but it all worked out.
What happened was we forgot to tie the string onto the cord to attach it to the can. I am so sorry. We'll get it right the next time. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having the committee on today and for having myself on. I really appreciate it. I'm just so excited for the upcoming lecture next week, which really will be my first opportunity to share with the community my doctoral research. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Right. We've been, if it's okay, we've been talking about you publicly, but all good things.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we didn't say anything about your stint on Radio Came On, and we're not going to talk about that. But for our guests, guys, I was trying to think, how, if you wouldn't mind, would you introduce yourself to our listeners better so that I don't think I've done it sufficient justice. So proud of what you've done. You make us so proud. So how would you, just a quick little spiel about yourself. You can say what you want to share. You don't need to even reference your brother. We can leave him out of this.
So, Buchanan, before you say anything, let me just say, Queen, well done.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
Yeah, so proud of you.
And thank you, everyone. I've been listening in online, so I'm so just grateful and humbled by the sort of reception that I've gotten from my colleagues, from you, Sterling and Dwayne. It's such a edifying feeling, such a great feeling. So to introduce myself, I'm a native Boston towner. I guess Teresa was talking about.
Yeah, we're not holding it against you, but okay.
The unrivaled Boston town. We're
just saying.
My goodness.
And the daughter of Tony and Marjorie Scott, and the younger sister of Shamari Scott. I mean, I think that's how people identify me, and so I will continue until now, right? When hopefully it'll be, Shamari, you are the older brother of Dr. Scott. So I think this sort of sibling rivalry. I've maybe set the pace for this year. So.
So what I heard from all that is that Shamari's old. Oh, he's gonna give me a hard time later, but that's okay. No, thank you, and you have honestly, through your perseverance, I've encouraged others. If you'd allow me to say publicly, I've used you as an example to encourage some students, not not just to finish high school, but to consider and accepting, further tuition to go off to university. What you shared with me previously, with respect to how we have many challenges when it comes to study. So thank you for that. And tell us about your research. Can we first ask? Ms. Susan says, we have to take the break, Mom? Okay. Dr. Scott, if it's okay, when we come back, we want to ask you not just about the excitement of the presentation next Thursday, but your research, why you chose that, how you went about it, what you want us to know as maybe as a teaser, so that it would inspire others to consider, being a part of the forum. Would that be okay with you?
Sure.
All right.
Good.
Let's do that after the break. Stay tuned.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Are you a Caymanian job seeker searching for employment? All jobs, whether full-time, part-time, temporary, or permanent, will be required to advertise on the Jobs Cayman portal. Visit work.ky. That's worc.ky to start your job search to see all available jobs or to apply. For assistance in registering or to learn more, call toll-free 1-800-534-9672 or customer care at 945-9672. 945-9672 today.
Ro Variety, centrally located in Tropical Plaza on Smith Road, carrying a wide range of household items, bathroom accessories, towels, clocks, handbags, clothes, shoes, jewelry, and more, and more, and more. You can buy from the big box retailers or support local. The better deals come from shopping local. Ro Variety Store, Tropical Plaza, Smith Road. Telephone 924-9553.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Dr. Stephanie Fuller-Cooper, Dr. Livingston Smith, and Mr. Louis Pitcairn joins us as we, in my words, hopefully I don't say it improperly, celebrate the doctoral success of Dr. McCann Scott, who's on the telephone. Thank you for staying with us, and again, a pleasant good afternoon.
Definitely. Good afternoon to everyone. Right. During the break, I was just kind of thinking a little bit about how I would do this introduction, but I really just want to at first acknowledge that I worked at Radio Cayman, and that it's been a long while, but it was at Radio Cayman where I was exposed to the news every day, and our conversation, Sterling, of just the current issues and world affairs, and And, you know, I decided to go back to school to actually complete my bachelor's degree after working at Radio Cayman. And I do want to give my sincere appreciation and thanks to Miss Norma, who was so supportive, Miss Paulette, and the staff. And I think that does speak to the importance that Caymanians understand, you know, academia. Maybe don't understand all of it, but really support young Caymanians that are actually pursuing and wanting to pursue knowledge and, you know, Caymanian history and knowledge production. So I did want to start off with that. And then really just lead into, you know, a brief version of my study and of my research, as I really was just trying to understand how Caymanians view our colonial status. Like, how do we view being a British overseas territory? How do we view our relationship to the UK, but also our relationship to Jamaica and the larger Caribbean? And so through various interviews and, you know, online survey responses, as Dr. Smith had stated, I really was able to connect with community, to listen to community, and now to present those findings back to community. And I'm so excited for that opportunity. I do think that a lot of times knowledge or, you know, books or articles are written on Cayman and not necessarily with Cayman. And that's what I was trying to do throughout this doctoral process. So while it is a celebration of me and, you know, this accomplishment, it also is a celebration of the support of community, the willingness and the openness of community as well, because some of the topics that I touch on, right, it's a sticky subject.
Yes.
But persons trusted me with that information, and I do not take that lightly at all.
If I could ask you, and I'm one of those individuals that teachers like me because I had questions. Those that thought I asked those questions were probably, you know, fatigued. But end of the day, that's how you learn, right? At least for me. In saying that, the resources that were available to you, whether it's in print and publication or whether it was in a person, two things: how accessible did you find that for your research, and how? Well, let's ask that first.
Yeah, so I think on one hand, not that accessible. I think that just by virtue of me having a university email address, that opens a lot of online, you know, repositories available to you. However, I should say that the National Archives were so instrumental and supportive, as well as the Cultural Foundation, in terms of the library and the books that they have. These two institutions in Cayman were obviously open to the public and very instrumental in my research. So I do say that it was probably 50-50, that a lot of the information would not necessarily maybe be available to the general public, but a lot of the information locally on island is.
And thank you for that, because I think there are, you know, perceptions that we don't have a lot of stuff, but it's probably accessibility. And then the other thing, accuracy. You know, you've looking at information, you probably, like many of us, have preconceived notions. Perhaps may have been told certain things either verbally in school, formally, or otherwise. When you sort of evaluated the accuracy of the information, and then how that compared to your perhaps initial perceptions, what would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, when you're a baby researcher, a baby doctoral student, you think you know everything and you know nothing at the same time. And so I do think that we approach the research having, you know, a thesis, a suggested understanding of where it's going, but to be open and flexible, because this research did not end up where I thought it would. But that's the process, you know. And I think also that thinking about where this work took me, I visited London for the first time to access their archives there, but understanding also that there are different types of knowledge, there's institutional knowledge, of course, but then there's also this generational, you know, knowledge that's passed down throughout generations, oral histories that We have a great repository at the archives that's available as well too.
Mhm.
So I do think that there's a sort of delicate balance
Mhm.
that you feel as a researcher in terms of knowing and understanding that not all history is documented. It's only certain histories that are documented that you can perhaps find in a library, but that doesn't diminish from the oral histories, that doesn't diminish from the familial histories that we know in Cayman, right? Many of us are researchers and historians and, as, you know, Dr. Steph, in terms of poets and, you know, creative individuals, we just don't necessarily name ourselves that way, but we are so.
If I didn't ask and listen to what you shared, two additional things. You said, you know, you were heading one direction, ended up in the next, all right? Where were you intending to go, and where did it end up?
Yeah. So I thought that, you know, in thinking about the colonial relationship, that people would have 1,000,001 different thoughts, and of course they did, right? But I do think that one of the results that I got was that a lot of everyday regular Caymanians are not really thinking about that relationship. It's not widely understood until, you know, certain things pop up and we maybe make that connection. So I do think that we as academics, our role is, you know, being the sort of middle person to that, in sort of instilling information. Yes, definitely. And then also based on my results from the questionnaires and interviews, the relationship between the UK and Cayman is viewed largely negative. And I will be discussing that further next week. But that was the majority of persons, the majority of responses, and I did not expect that.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into the last two questions, and I do not want to do anything other than to give a trailer, a teaser, in a sense, for people to appreciate how this, you know, being an academic paper, but it's so real to not just our history, but to our present and potential, the impact on the future. So if you would permit me to ask maybe two final questions. What surprises, if any, did you find in your research that may have stood out to you? You were thinking this, and oops, I didn't realize that.
I was very intrigued, and I'm so grateful, Mr. Roy Bawden, his book, Patronage Personalities, that purple book was a great source of information. I have to plug it. It says so much, though, right, in terms of where we are now in 2023. I think that a lot of times we don't necessarily have that historical understanding.
An invaluable resource, and I think that's part of one of the things that on a personal level I'm mindful of, that the more we have published a body of knowledge, we need to ensure the accuracy. So my last question, influenced both by what Ms. Teresa shared, but in your alluding to your research, one word, dependency. So we look at the colonial era, we look at British Jamaica, and then that move to independence, and then the decision on our part. And many times, even in our government publications, it would say the Cayman was a dependency of Jamaica. I've wrestled with this. How can a dependency be how can you be a dependent of a dependency? To what extent, if at all, that sort of played into your research, that you now formed a view with respect to the relationship with the UK having its overseer based in their big island of British Jamaica?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even terminology is important, and I think a lot of times we don't necessarily, or maybe we don't think, right, that terminology is a signal to certain persons. And so in a lot of the research that I encountered, these are, you know, British administrators, right, governors before time, that they're writing, and this is the sort of definition that they're having. And when we even think about the relationship that Cayman has to the UK now, in terms of not necessarily being a financial dependency, the same could be sort of thought if we think historically in terms of the relationship that Cayman has had to Jamaica. I'm thinking politically, and I think that's where, but also like socially, right? There are a lot of understandings of that term as well too. And so I do talk a little bit more about that within the research next week as well.
Yeah. Well, if ever I have the opportunity to read your dissertation in full, I would be honored. It's so wonderful, and I'm mindful of the time, and I'll take every second that Ms. Susan gives, right? But I also should be, conscious. So before we conclude, Dr. Scott, Dr. Smith, next Thursday.
Next Thursday, Dwayne, at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And for the Zoom details, you can go to letmelive.ky. And I want to make a quick plug that for the book we launched last year, the Cayman Islands History, Politics, and Economy, we still have some copies. So if persons want to get some copies, just call me, 916-6462. And it's just a mere $25 for this huge, important text.
And that's CI, so it's a little bit more US.
And McKenna is featured in that book
as well. Oh, yes, so McKenna is definitely there. So I'm just saying, Dwayne, nobody want to miss a lecture like this from a young mind who has contemplated a big subject and what she has to say to us.
All right. So, Dr. Scott, we will start with you, perhaps. Any final thoughts you may want to leave with our listeners? I know Ms. Teresa and Dr. Steph will, give a, final personal public invitation, but anything else that you may want to share?
No, I mean, I'm just really excited. I think so often, a lot of times, when you're in academia, the work is very solitary. And so I'm just very grateful that I have the opportunity to present to the community. And this work is it's a love letter to Cayman. It is for the community in mind, and I'm just so grateful that I am able to continue, the tradition of Caymanian intellectuals and really thinking about how we are able to capture our own history in our own words, on our own terms. So I'm just really looking forward to next week. And hopefully when I'm back home, I can stop by the studio and we can have, a proper discussion as well too.
I would be honored. And I'll cancel my vacation for that day. So, please,
Please don't.
No, that I thank you for putting that here, because I was going to say publicly, please, you have a standing invitation to join us, preferably in person, but if you need to do it otherwise, if you don't mind, again, congratulations, you inspire us.
Thank you.
Continue to be safe, to be well, to be imbued with that propensity to learn and to share. All
Thank you so much.
Take care.
It was
See you
great
next.
Talking to everyone.
There you go. Pleasure.
Next Thursday.
See you soon. So, Dr. Steph, if you wish, quick final words, and then Ms. Teresa, would that be okay to close us out? All right.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much again, Dr. McKenna, for wanting to share your work with us. I love when you said that there are so many books written on Cayman, but you attempted to write with Cayman. So I really want to just echo the invitation to the Cayman public. Come on out. It's a love letter to Cayman. Why wouldn't you want to hear this? So next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. via Zoom. Please go to letmelive.ky. Facebook, Instagram, you will see the Zoom information there.
Just capturing the thoughts that emanated from the review of some of the work, the observations I made with McKenna's work as well. I'd like to share a small quote from the Barbados' first Prime Minister, and that's because, as we were talking during the break about them becoming independent after 300 years, then choosing to become a republic because symbols matter, and I heard McKenna allude to that as well. So she said, as cautioned by our first Prime Minister, we ought no longer to be found loitering on colonial premises, she said. We must seek to redefine our definition of self, of state, and the Barbados brand in a more complex, fractured, and turbulent world. Our country and people must dream big dreams and fight to realize them. That was just that.
See, we all as children aspire one day to become adults, and as parents, in our nurturing, we want to provide that safe environment where they can find their wings, and it is in that relationship that transcends posterity. But unfortunately, we strive too much to focus on what divides us as to what unifies us. We're more alike than we are unalike. The challenge is that we continue to look at color, creed, ethnicity, and economic status, and we despise one another for our colloquial expressions or jargon, just sometimes our very presence. And as I look around the table, hopefully it's said with the love that is in my heart, and more important, heart. I see beautiful people who inspire and nurture, and I think the day that we can question each other in a sense of a responsible love, the more we'll find that path ahead is that much more enjoyed. And for me, my mom always say, they never come that big, nor ugly to frighten her. And it's important that we do that we can fight without picking up arms, that we can chastise without words, but we can nurture with just an open smile. I'm
all good.
Wonderful.
My brother, all good.
Join us tomorrow, my friends. Tomorrow, this Saturday.
Oh, yes, that's right. So we can come and have a chat with you tomorrow.
Yes, we can. So I was going to say, join us tomorrow. Not here on Talk Today, but there are a couple of things that are transpiring in our community. Yeah, you can hit up with Susan on her social media pages. She'll tell you all that's happening. You can find me in some places if you come after 8. On Monday. Be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Here is where tradition never dies. This is your radio.